All right, welcome everybody. This is Athens for Everyone's interview with Kirrena Gallagher. She is running for school board in Athens District 2. Hey, Kirrena.
Doing?
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Despite the rain, doing good. I don't know.
Yes,
How do you feel about rain? You might like it.
I do like the rain. I like it at night. It's very soothing. We play it on loudspeaker in my house, rain and thunderstorms. So we pretend a lot. We also have a hammock outside, and like when it's raining really hard, we go out there and enjoy the rain.
Nice. So let's see. We'll get started off here with Kirrena being able to tell us a little bit about herself. Like, I don't know. What do you want to tell us, Kirrena? Who are you? How long have you lived in Athens? There's a good starting point.
Okay, so I've been in Athens all of my life. We moved here when I was 2. And my mom, she moved here with her, I guess her husband, well, her ex-husband now, and out of the military.
Mhm.
And his family is from Athens, and so all the family, my stepdad's family, everybody's from Athens. But yeah, I've been here since I was 2. I've lived on both sides of town, so like some really big neighborhoods: Athens Gardens, Rolling Ridge, Parkview Extensions, White Road, some of everywhere. And I went through the school system, and I graduated from Clarke Central in 2003. So go Glads. Woo! I have 2 boys, Malachi and Caleb. And Malachi is a rising 11th grader at Cedar Shoals, but he plans on going to Career Academy full time next year. So he's at at Cedar Shoals, the Career Academy, and Athens Tech. So he's doing the dual enrollments, and I'm excited about that and the opportunity that is extended to him through our school system. And I have a rising 8th grader, Caleb, and he is at Coyle, where we just hired our new principal. Go Dr. Ford. It's going to be a year. And yeah, I live in District 2. I moved over here about 6 years ago. I purchased my home through one of the programs, the program that Athens Land Trust has. So I'm a proud homeowner in District 2. And I love engaging in community and finding different ways to volunteer. I volunteer a lot. Finding different ways to volunteer and share input through my experiences or the research that I do, and help people find their voice, and like give them a little nudge sometimes so that they can use their voice and speak up for themselves. But that's what I'm looking forward to doing on the school board, is really making sure that people feel empowered to use their voice and show up and ask questions and just really be engaged, but while doing influence and policy, the policy changes that need to happen. So I'm looking forward to that. I guess that's a little bit.
That was good. Yeah, thank you. That was perfect. Kind of went all over. We did from the beginning to the nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from what you just said, that you would like to help kind of what I think of as like kind of leading from behind, or like having a lot of community engagement and listening to what folks say that they need or want.
Right.
I saw on your website that you talked a lot about that sort of thing, this kind of participatory governing, and you talked about having community assessments is that of the school board or of the school district in general? Is that your idea?
So both. So having the community, I gotta put my paper down because I get excited about stuff like this. So having the community come up with a list of expectations. A lot of times I think our district says this is what we're going to do, and as the institution of education, that's kind of what you expect. But the community is on the receiving end of the product that our district is creating. And so I think as a community need to come up with a list of deliverables to hold our district more accountable. But also as a district, just saying to the community at large, okay, look, we understand that we are charged with providing education. Here are some things that we need from you in order for us to do a more effective job. So more like creating some checks and balances and in doing it progressively, going forward.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything like that you've experienced being a parent that the school district or the board does right now?
So we do have local school governance teams, and I serve on the one for COIL, which I'm just going to go ahead and say is one of the best local school governance teams because we work together, and there are expectations that were set when we come together, and then we just do like follow-ups throughout the year when we have our governance team meetings. But the principal also was very clear about what she needed from us, and then we turned around and said, okay, so here are the things that because we aren't in the school building all the time, here are some of the things that you're saying is going on in the school building, or here's what we're hearing out in the community. So let's work together to figure out positive ways to address these issues, and then work collaboratively to find those and make sure that those solutions are seen through.
Right.
So I think we have like the really good launch pad for making something like that happen through our local school governance teams, because those are largely parents and community members in addition to school administrative, but that's staff. So, but that's 21 different schools, and I think at large we need to be able to do that, or maybe doing it at each 21 different schools, and then coming up with a list that works for across the district. So I don't know. I look forward to having that discussion and seeing it become a thing.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. So kind of working with some of the things that have already been in place, but kind of sprucing them up.
Yeah,
I like that. And I saw also on your website that you talked about partnering with local businesses.
mm-hmm.
I like that idea, and I'd love to hear more about it.
So we have partners in education, and I think some schools have stronger partners in education than others. Like my children went to Barrow Elementary, and because they are right there on the UGA's campus, of course, they're a partner in education in UGA. That partnership is a lot stronger at Barrow than it is, say, Gain School, because it's on the other side of town, further away. The students can't just walk over to the school. So really working with the business community and the schools, so the schools can figure out what it is that the schools need to do. I would encourage schools to do a needs assessment and then reach out to local businesses based on the needs of that school, and they won't always be the same. So regularly assessing the needs and the benefits. But I think that also puts the school district in a better position to say, okay, employers, X amount of parents work with you here. This is where the time where parent-teacher conferences is. We've got a whole calendar that says what events are coming up throughout the school year. We need for you to be just a little bit more understanding about our needs for parent engagement inside of our schools. But, first working on those relationships with the business community by saying we can't do this by ourselves. we need your help. And then that kind of, I think, makes it easier to have a conversation around, why I need you to let some of your staff go and turn this off. Why we need you to give some of your staff more flexible time so that they can better engage with us. Because our school, the business community is greatly impacted by the students that we send back out after they, even if they don't graduate, we're still sending them back out to seek employment, and just helping the business community understand, we want to make sure that you have the best managers and best competition. So we need your help in making sure that all of our students are prepared to help you make money and to challenge you so that you do better. Because I'm really all for, like, students. I'm not one to encourage kids to go get jobs. Go start your own business, make your own money. There's no long-term benefit in making somebody else money.
I like that. That's part of the uplifting the community part of your campaign that I think is real cool. I also saw, so I guess this kind of goes along with what we were talking about before, and engaging the community a lot more, but also not just asking for feedback, but in how the school board, it sounds like you're talking about the school board being a lot more communicative with parents and the community about what's going on. And I know, this past year's been a rough one. I was on the outskirts of that stuff, so I tried to keep up, but mostly my way of keeping up was on Facebook. And, that's never totally accurate.
Yeah.
So it was just like trying to figure out, like, oh, who said what, did what, and so I imagine, I don't know if some of that encouraged you even more to think that there should be better outreach. But can you talk some about your ideas about that?
Mm-hmm. So not just outreach, because a lot of times when I hear people talk about parent and family engagement, they're expecting for parents to come to the school and then kind of sit down in a chair like we expect for children to do, and then be talked at. Wow. What I am talking about is education around roles, responsibilities, and rights. So that will look like a lot of elementary. It will feel very elementary, because we definitely need to get back to the basics. I think oftentimes we assume that people know. We assume that people read those Title I papers that they've taken from a book down to a 2-pager. We assume that people read the student code of conduct. We assume that people read through that stack of papers that goes home at the beginning of the year, and then the limited communication that goes out about our school district and how it works. I think we make a lot of assumptions, and just we need to get to a place where we assume that that no one knows anything, and then making sure that people have accurate information going forward. I kind of think of it like one of my sons talking to their peers about sex. Like, I don't want you to get that information wrong from your peers. I'd much rather you get accurate information, just, basic accurate information from me, because I have your best interest at heart. And I think that's what we need to do as a district, just saying, wait, we don't want you to get wrong information from anywhere else. Come to us, and we'll make sure that you have accurate information, so that going forward, you make more responsible decisions, and you're more likely to support us and not call national news when there's something going on. We can work together because you understand, the consequences of not being as informed.
Yeah. That's a very, yeah. And so that would look like, do you think more like events, or like you said, kind of asking people to come in and sit down in a chair and get talked at? For one thing, it's not super inviting. A lot of people don't want to do that. Number two is like accessibility issues or time issues. Parents have a hard time getting to these places.
Right. So I'm going to go back to our local school governance teams, because we did write the local school governance teams in our charter agreement. So we need to make sure that we're making the best use of the resources that we are building in our district. So charging those local school governance teams, making sure that, because the district has access to a group of very interested people at all 21 schools. So reaching out to those local school governance teams and saying, look, this is accurate information. I need for you to make sure that this gets out, and charging each school to make sure that the uniform information that is coming from the district is the same information that goes out to the community. Because I think asking the district to do all of that work when there are groups of people who are already in place to do that level of work, I think is unrealistic. The district has 99 other things to do, but we do have, a group of volunteers of at least 9 per school who could have, conversations with a uniform message from the district.
That makes a lot of sense. So using the local school governance as kind of liaisons between the school district and the parents.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's see, we'll move on to some questions. If anybody's watching right now and you want to ask a question, please feel free to do so. I'm going to read off some questions that we have from A4E members.
Okay.
And I don't want any of it to be too repetitive, so I'll try to, if one's like, well, we already covered that. Okay, this one, what do you believe the district could do to improve faculty morale?
Faculty morale. Definitely have a way for faculty to communicate their challenges, their opportunities for growth, the district's opportunities of growth, without having to fear that there will be negative consequences for using their voice. I've talked to a lot of teachers, a lot of school staff, and they have, everybody's got, well, most of the people that I've talked to have seen something that can be improved. They just don't have someone that they trust that they can talk to and know that they won't either have their job threatened for using their voice. So I think that creating a pathway for communication, anonymous communication, and then when necessary, and then, do some upfront communication about when it's necessary to share your contact information. But otherwise, no one knows what's going on in any school community if no one is sharing it, or if they're too afraid to share it. So definitely making sure that we have some very clear communication about when it's appropriate to share your information, but also making sure that we have an anonymous, I don't know. I just talking to people over the last couple of years, it's just been like, I'm not going to say anything because I can lose my job. Making sure that we are doing exit interviews when people do leave the district, to make sure that we are, when people leave the district for something other than retirement, making sure that we are identifying what those specific reasons were, and then working towards addressing those issues as a district so that we are not losing teachers and support staff in our school buildings.
Right. Yeah. I guess also along those lines, there's a question of, do you think everybody, all faculty who work in the school district, should they get a living wage?
What is a living wage? Somebody said something about $15 an hour. That is nothing. like, I think all parents who've had to become educators will all agree that teachers and support staff in general all need to be paid a lot more. Like,
Yes.
there's no question in my mind that everyone across the board, if you work in a building where you deal with other people's children all day long, you definitely need to be compensated, not just for your time, but for your skill and your patience and your years of education, or cleaning up somebody's throw up, or making sure that they are getting Tylenol if they've got a headache. Bus drivers for making sure, being the first point of contact for our kids and making sure that they get to school safely and then back home safely. Like, everybody needs to be paid more. Our pre-K teachers, especially our pre-K teachers, because we harp a lot about, the importance of pre-K, but then we don't pay the very educators who are prepping them for kindergarten. So yes, if I had a bajillion dollars, I'd make sure that everyone who works in every area of education got a check.
Nice. That's a solid yes, above a yes.
It's like 2 yeses.
Yeah. I like that. What is a living wage? We need. So I think you sort of answered this in your question just before, and then talking about pay as well. But do you have any other ideas about better ways to recruit good teachers, and especially teachers of color?
So I think we need to start acting a lot earlier and making our way to college campuses and recruiting there. I spoke with a group of students from Cedar, and they asked me a question, and I was embarrassed because I did not have an answer for it. So I started having conversations immediately after. So they asked, how do you plan to support the Latinx community? And I was like, I'm not a member of that community. And because I always hear of the programs and services that are, that I assumed were offered to those students, then I just figured this was one group that just got lumped into the whole Black and brown thing. And we were serving everybody. And then I started having conversations and realized that when we do hiring and we talk about, serving the Latinx community, we mean the person at the front desk. So if that person can speak Spanish, then we kind of check it off as, we've done a great job with hiring, like diverse staff. Or you can go through any school building and you won't find 5 fluent Spanish speakers. So making sure that we are intentional about hiring, but not just for support staff, but being very intentional about hiring teachers and counselors and family engagement specialists and social workers who represent our already marginalized student population. So those African American students, those members of the Latinx community, but going out to schools, having conversations in the community, and even so, here's one way I think that we could do a better job with the teachers that we have, is making sure that we're reaching out to retired teachers. Now, I've been in some classrooms where classroom management is like, oh my God, like why? But I know a lot of really strong retired teachers where classroom management was not an issue at all. So pairing a retired teacher with a new teacher, and then having them go through things like classroom management, redirection, like understanding, just going through like some cultural competency, but pulling in those more experienced retired teachers, so that new teachers don't have as big a learning curve. I think that helps.
I think that's great. Yeah. Yeah, pairing the retired teachers with new teachers seems like a really valuable potential there. That sounds good. Let's see. What else we got? I'm gonna double check our Facebook real quick. We got some folks watching. Hey y'all.
Hey,
Ask
y'all.
a question. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh, well, this is kind of along the lines of what you just were talking about. This is just asking your thoughts on job training.
Okay.
So kind of in addition to maybe having like a retired teacher to help,
Mm-hmm.
what else do you think?
So I think that we could start training students early. Last summer, Clarke County School District did a couple of programs during for students who are interested in possibly being I think it was like a teacher, a principal, a counselor, or in Malachi participated in the welding program. But those were free. The students actually got paid for participating in that. And just like that early exposure, and we could really do, I think, as a county, as a city, Athens, we could really do a better job of giving our graduating students a reason to come back. And so doing that through the programs or services that are offered through the community and through our schools. So doing some early recruitment there. I know like the sheriff's department, the police department are they've taken that approach to reach out to the high schools and do, some recruitment. So I think as a district, we could probably do the same thing, just saying, okay, so you're going to school for this particular area of interest. We'd love for you to come back and share what you learned. Even if it's not to teach, we still would like for you to come back into a classroom so that you are encouraging the students coming up to, not just go into any particular field, but to pursue higher education or if they go to the military or just get out of school and just go to work or take a year off. Just really inviting our current students to come back and then share, like some lessons learned. Because I think that overall helps with recruitment, giving people a reason to come back.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. Getting into questions about discipline.
Okay.
How effective do you believe alternative approaches to discipline are, such as restorative, educative, conflict resolution, etc.?
I think that the restorative approach is reactive because it happens after the fact. The peer mediation, I wish that we would put more money into, or some money into that, and making sure that each school has its own counselor that has, like 45 minutes to devote to training students, solve their own issues inside of the school. I've seen the restorative circles, and I think it's a great opportunity for people, for our youth to have, conversations about what has happened, how it made them feel, and then how they're going to move forward. But again, it is after the fact. So being more proactive with like mindfulness training, which we're doing at COIL, go COIL. So mindfulness training, making sure that we are using the resources outside of our school system. So I know there are a lot of counselors and mentors who have degrees in areas of youth growth and development, and they can help with coping and transition and dealing with trauma, all of those areas. So making sure that we are also, pulling them into our, after, like thoroughly vetting them, but giving them opportunities to work with our youth, because I think now we're going to have a budget cut somewhere, and we're going to have to rely more on outside resources in our community. So definitely to be more proactive about discipline. We've got plenty of resources. We just need to make sure that we are accessing them. But I mean,
yeah,
mentioned the restorative circle. I mean, the restorative justice thing. But it's reactive, not proactive.
yeah. So there's benefits to that, but there's also got to be other stuff working at the same time. That's funny. I asked that right when Jody Barnes asked our first question, which was pretty much what I asked. She was saying, what is your perception of restorative practices in the schools? And she's an intern ED for Georgia Conflict Center, and knows that you've worked with John Lash.
I have. I've done some consulting work with them, working with students that have IEPs or 504 plans. And so working with the parents of those students and navigating resources and making sure that they have access to additional support, making sure that they know how to navigate the school system, helping them understand chain of command, introducing them to policies like our visitation policy that they didn't know about, and then kind of walking them through, like what a visit actually looks like. So yeah, I was able, and I worked with Beth Stanton on that. So it was a lot of fun.
Nice. That's awesome. So along those same lines, the idea of having counselors or peer counselors or some kind of program like that. What are your feelings about, you have school resource officers that are also in schools, and if we're cutting budgets and we're talking about what's necessary and what's not necessary, what are your feelings about school resource officers?
So I have very positive relationships with the school resource officers, all the way back to when I was in school. And gosh, I think Reed's still with the school district. I was in middle school. But I think that because the school resource officers are able to establish positive relationships with students, at least from what I've seen, I think that on outside of school, there's at least one additional person that they say that they know that's in law enforcement. So like having police inside of the school, I think is a lot different than having resource officers, and just by the titles, I think there is a difference. They go through some additional training so that it is easier for them to work with students. And most of them have a background with working, well, the ones that I know have a background with working with the youth. And I think just overall, I think they're a positive contribution to our school communities. I'm not for having police in the school, and one resource officer seems to, be working from year to year. I don't think the school district needs its own police department. So
has that been suggested?
Yeah, we should go to our meetings.
Yeah, you can tell that I'm not there. We might have Rochelle Berry from A3 might actually start doing that stuff with y'all. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But okay, that's helpful, and especially you coming from your own personal experience being positive with school resource officers. That's good to hear. Okay, I have another question that is a bit of a pivot. So this one is about teachers and them being able to dispute or appeal evaluations and present evidence in order to improve their results.
Okay. So results on?
I guess the results of the evaluation.
Okay. So teacher evaluations. Okay. So I think that's a great idea, because sometimes it can feel one-sided with someone coming in 1, 2, maybe 4 times a year and saying, okay, this is what you're doing great or not. Also relying on how well or not a student performs, I think is not the best way to consider, like points on it. I mean, like definitely put it on there, like one question, but that should not consume the results of or assume the results of an evaluation. And some of the tools that we use, like MAP, I think while it is a tool that teachers use, and students can see their growth, I think that while we talk a lot about the social and emotional well-being of students, making sure that, like if there's a student who came in at the beginning of the year who was, let's say a 7th grader, because kindergarten is way too easy for this example. So you got a 7th grader who comes in who has a hard time focusing, is 5 grade levels behind on reading, and it's just been passed through the system, can't do math, and so their behavior is off the chain. I think that like a mid-year, if there's an evaluation based on, if you have to use the students, then if that student is able to now effectively communicate where the frustrations are and ask for help, I think that needs to be counted in an evaluation, because that is still progress. While it is not, now this child is reading on grade level, they're already 5 grade levels behind. So expecting teachers to pull students up in 1 year, I think is ridiculous. But definitely having teacher input on their own evaluations and just saying, okay, so some of the decisions that the district made directly impacted my ability or inability to actually get something done. All the drama in our county has caused me a lot of stress, and so I'm not sure about job security, and that has had an impact on my ability or inability to perform well on this evaluation. The staff keeps changing in our district, and we've got so many bosses, I don't really know who to listen to. So that impacts my ability or inability to perform well on an evaluation. So absolutely, teacher input.
Nice. Cool. Let's see. This one kind of goes back to, I think, the more recent issues that have been occurring.
Okay.
Should CCSD board members be prevented from openly communicating with their constituents via social media?
Read it again.
So it says, should CCSD board members be prevented from openly communicating with their constituents via social media?
No. Constituents into office, and it is a service position. So you can't serve someone who you never talked to. You don't know the issues if you never talk to your constituents. And social media is a grand platform in order to that we have to have those like conversations with constituents. Everybody's not gonna come before a school board and take 3 minutes. I might need 45 minutes worth of your attention, and I can get it on social media. I'm not gonna get everything out in them 3 minutes at the school board meeting. And school board members can't even respond at school board meetings. So yes, I need to talk to you at some time, and me calling your house and you have kids, that ain't always, that's not going to work either. So I think social media is a great platform for any representative, anyone in a service position to communicate with the people who rely on their best decisions, because it impacts them.
Nice. Beautiful. Well, oh, my cat is coming in. Do you, okay, let's do, this will be the last question from these. And then if
Okay.
anybody has questions on the Facebook, I'll read those. And then I also want to ask you to talk a little bit about Grand Slam, because
Okay.
that'd be cool to talk about.
Okay.
Okay, so the last question that I got on here is, what could the district do to improve equity for students from low-income families and minority groups?
Okay. So low income families is pretty much everybody because we live in Clarke County. Um, but improving equity, one definitely making sure that we have staff and teachers in the school that look like the students, making sure that our partnerships with outside organizations and agencies that serve the youth are very strong, so that students have wraparound services, and being real with what our deal around what growth really looks like. We can help the county come up with a definition on what poverty really is. We could absolutely make sure that opportunities are extended to everyone in the community to be inside of the schools, so that students can see people who look like them, who are giving back in their own unique way in our community. I don't know. We can do a lot of stuff. I don't have
Yeah,
all the solutions. I love hearing other people's ideas.
there's a lot of different ways.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that we could absolutely do. I don't think anything would happen overnight, but at least being open to the conversation about what that looks like. When we hire, when we have consultants, making sure that they are from the a background that identifies with our most vulnerable populations. That way, when they're given insight, input, and ideas, they are considering that perspective. Making sure that when we purchase curriculum, it has accurate information in it, but it also is easier for our students to relate to. Making sure that our school lunch is culturally appropriate, or diverse, so that students can see themselves through the food that we serve our students. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff we can do. We just got to start doing stuff.
Right.
Most
Yeah.
of the stuff is fairly easy. It won't cost a whole bunch of money. And we have to swallow our pride and get off our high horse and recognize that we don't have everything right. And we probably won't ever have everything right, but there are some things that we can do right in hopes of getting to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Because when we talk about poverty, I liked that you said we have to define what poverty really is. That was very interesting. Do you have any, do you want to talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
So I think because we have so many different entities that tell us what poverty is. So the federal government says if you're under this number, if and the county says, well, it's the number of people who are under this income level, but they also don't have access. And for some people that I talk to, it's the mindset. So like coming together and then saying, okay, look, this is how we are defining poverty in our school system. So we aren't looking at income as a way to define poverty, because I know, at least from my experience, I've lived in public housing and didn't have a job, but that doesn't mean that my children went without clothes or food, or I wasn't able to creatively find a way to make sure that my rent was paid. So like being able to provide shelter, food, and clothing, or like on Maslow's hierarchy of need. So I met those basic needs. Does that mean I'm poor? So like making sure that we are like creating our own definition of what poverty is. We also got to stop celebrating that we are the number 3 most impoverished city for its size or whatever that is. Like, that is not a badge of honor. Like, can we stop saying, celebrating the negative things that we have going on? Like, we've really got to start amping up the things that we do have going for ourselves. So, like, yeah, we got a flagship university, one of the first universities in the nation right here in Athens. So, like, let's celebrate that, and then say, okay, University of Georgia, we done said something nice about you. Now we need for you to do something, like open up more spots at your school for students coming out of Clarke County School District, so that we got more of a reason to celebrate you. Or making sure that some of that football money y'all got coming in goes to our football programs in our school system, so that we have better programs and we aren't sitting around arguing about how much money should be spent on fields. Like, that kind of stuff. We can be really, creative in, like, addressing how we define poverty, like not ignoring it. Because I've been in some communities where they're just like, oh, well, we don't have a poverty problem, or, whatever, whatever. Poverty problem. But as Athens, being in Athens, we have our definition of what poverty is, and we celebrate our solutions to addressing that issue. And we got to, change the narrative to a more positive one. And people believe, what you show them, what you tell them. And if we create our own positive narrative, people are going to believe it. So for every one negative thing that people have to say about Athens, our Athens community, and our school system, then we need to have, come back with 3 positive things. Don't let anybody else tell us, like, all the stuff that we're doing wrong. Oh, okay, whatever. Y'all school district is on y'all are being y'all are on accreditation probation. Okay, but we have a school board who is willing to do the work to make sure that we get out of this mess. We have an interim superintendent who's been in this community for a very long time, all of her life, who is holding down this fort and making sure that we got through, like our end of the year because of coronavirus. We made it through that. We also have students who are going off to colleges all around the country, all around the world. We have athletes that, see the shows. We made it all the way to the really? We made it all the way to the championship. Like, can we celebrate that? We've got students who are in elementary school doing stuff on middle and high school levels. We've got a career academy that is doing some amazing things and expanding. We've got a strong partnership with Athens-Clarke and Piedmont, the University of North Georgia, and sometimes the UGA. But we've got a lot of stuff to celebrate. We need to be doing that, celebrating our good stuff, the stuff that we are doing right. We've got teachers who are committed. We've got a pool of teachers who are retiring this year because they put in 25, 30 years, 35 years of service to our children in our district. Like, that's the kind of stuff that we need to be talking about, not all this woe is me type stuff, and we ain't never gonna get it right, and there's always somebody else doing something to us. Like, no, we've got a lot of good stuff going on, not just in our county, but in our school district. So we need to change the narrative.
I like that. I hear you kind of talking about you're saying, like, tell a more complete story. You're not just, Athens is not just its poverty rate. The poverty rate is real, and, like, let's talk about that.
Right.
But like you said, like, let's find the real definitions of it, beyond, what the federal government either describes it as or our state describes it as. You've also got the historical aspects of what is poverty.
Right.
Yeah. And then, but I like that you bring it back to this kind of like positive, the things that have been accomplished despite those hardships. So it's kind of this nice whole story you're talking about.
It's like, and I think about it this way. So if I were talking to you about Malachi is my 16-year-old. He's 16. If I only told you about the stuff that he does wrong, how he's, got a smart mouth and he doesn't like to do his homework and thinks he knows everything, he doesn't like to clean up. If that is all that you heard, then you would believe that is the definition of my son. You wouldn't hear that he's extremely creative. He is very loving. He takes care of people. He babysits. That he looks out for me. He doesn't let anybody talk. He doesn't let anybody talk about me. That he is not just creative, but he is extremely smart, and he's got like some really great ideas about stuff that he wants to do with his future, and he volunteers, and he showed me how to compost. Like, if you never heard any of that stuff, you would assume that he is the worst person ever. You wouldn't want anything to do with him. I don't want you around my kids because you awful. Like, no. But that's what we do with this county. That's what we do with our school district. And until we tell the good stuff, people are always going to assume that we are the worst. I went into, prior to taking the position that I currently have, I worked for Georgia Family Connection Partnership. And that means I worked with other coordinators in the region. And when I would talk to them, they would tell me about Clarke County. I live in Clarke County, and all they know is the negative stuff about Clarke County. And so I have to resell Clarke County to people who I'm working with, because they don't know the positive stuff, because all they hear is the negative stuff. We've got to change the narrative. We don't need other counties talking about, oh, well, we're finna get us a whole bunch of new teachers next year because they all leaving Clarke County because Clarke County ain't got it together, which is probably the truth. But can we tell something positive? Can we share some of the things that we are doing right? That's what I need us to do. All of us. Okay, get off the soapbox.
That's what we're here for. We're all about soapboxes. Sin is, I think, talking about your son Malachi. He says he is awesome. Thanks, Sin.
Yeah, Malachi was Sin's boss at one point. He hired Malachi to be his boss. Now, you want to talk about living wage? He was paying Malachi $20 an hour to be an office manager. Like, that is setting expectations for our youth. We need to do that as a community. So Malachi walks into a position, any position. One, he's already, had these really great experiences that were extended through this community, like through Athens Land Trust as a young urban farmer, through Sin with Haven Business Services, through Marissa Joyner, who gave Malachi his first job making $10 an hour, selling hot dogs at West Farmers Farmers Market. So, so now that he's had these experiences, these exposures, and then making $20 an hour, now he's walking into other places like, I'm not sure I want to take $7.75, $8 an hour. But we can do that for all of our kids. They leave outside of Athens, they're not going somewhere else saying, okay, well, I'll take $9, $10 an hour because that's all I'm worth. Malachi's walking into places like, hold on, I already made $20 an hour. You're gonna have to come better. So, but that is through, like the community that that I've kind of built around my children. And I'm just saying, if I can do that for my kids, I think as a county, we can do that for all the kids who are here, so that when they leave here, they can go be world changers somewhere else, go make $1 bajillion, and then, come back home and be like, hey, Miss Kirrena, I got a check for $1 million for you. And I'm going to take it and be like, thank you, baby. But but we can absolutely do that. Set the expectations high now, and help our kids set their expectations high, and they're gonna be fine.
Way to set a precedent. Way to do it, Sin. He said he earned that.
Malachi's not an easy boss. Not an easy boss.
Beautiful. So Kirrena, we've got like 5 minutes left
Okay.
on our little chat here. Do you want to tell us about Grand Slam?
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So I saw that Grand Slam will start up again this summer in July. And so just so that everybody knows, Grand Slam is not a Kirrena original idea. It is not. That is something that was started in around 1989, 1990s by a group of pastors and concerned community people. They got a small grant from the police department, and they wanted to give youth and something positive to do during the summer at night, and it grew over time. It eventually got shifted around because a lot of leadership changed. There was a mayor who thought it wasn't important, and because it has never had its own line item, it got cut. Now I know that line items can get cut. It's just a little bit harder to cut it because you can see it. And right now it is folded under recreation, in leisure services budget. So we can't actually see it. Mayor and commission, we cannot see it. That does not mean that it is funded because it's folded in there. But when we can see it, then I'll believe that it's funded. But it's a great opportunity for the youth. Friday nights, Saturday nights. I hope that we do it 2 nights a year. They moved those meetings to Thursdays between 4 and 5, which is when I'm on the radio. So I have not been able to go to those meetings. It's always interesting to see how things work. Yeah, Grand Slam is for the youth. It was started as a gang and youth violence prevention. It is, all the core values are still there. And so on that, I do want to encourage people to, make sure that you do your research and use your voice. Show up to, commission meetings, show up to the school board meetings, and, speak your truth. And you never know what happened. You show up consistently enough, then they'll be like, damn, here she come again. Let's do something. So, show up. Yeah, show up and then show up again. And then, if you got to, bring somebody with you. Do your research, and then after doing your due diligence, then make it a matter of public opinion. If we can get stuff done in Athens. We can absolutely get stuff done. Don't wait on a public official. Don't wait on an elected representative to fix it for you. Sometimes you're gonna have to do it. Be the only one to show up. I get on school board. I'm gonna need all of y'all to help. I do not plan on doing that by myself. So I can be on the inside affecting policy and looking at the budget. But on the outside, I need for everybody to be doing their part and making sure that when the kids leave the school building, when they get back to the community, then it's just as safe, it's just as welcoming, it's just as educational. Yeah. Did I talk us up to that last minute?
Just about. You get 2 minutes to tell people where they can find you and listen to what you have to say, or contact you if you want to start a conversation.
Okay, so my website is KirrenaForChange.com. You can listen to me every Thursday on Community Forum on 92.7 FM with Mr. Rick Dunn. You can email me at elect Kirrena Gallagher, ELECTKIRRENAGALLAGHER at gmail.com, or just KirrenaNicole@yahoo.com. What else? I don't know. I'm usually like out here in these streets. So you may see me out there. Y'all support Cedar Show's baseball team. They need some money, for real. They need some money. And Coyle's basketball team, they need some money, like for uniforms, for real. So y'all support the schools, get on local school governance team, learn more about what our district is doing right, and celebrate that.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Kirrena, for talking with us, answering all these crazy questions, and doing it with a big old smile. So thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Yeah,
And
y'all vote for Kirrena. Early voting starts today.
today.
Through June 5th. Election day is June 9th. Vote Kirrena Gallagher for School Board District 2.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys for showing up and commenting and asking questions. And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye, Kirrena. Thank